I did it. I have completed the reading challenge. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stacey and I make videos about books. If you've seen my other videos from 2024, you will know that I have been doing the Dimmicks Reading Challenge, and this video is all about the last few books that I read to finish that challenge off. Let's get straight in. So the first prompt was cherry on top, and that was for something uplifting and bright. For this prompt, I read Emergency Exit Only by Michelle Upton. This one was an Australian fiction, and we follow the character of Amelia Harris, and she is basically trying out loads of different jobs. She quits her office job and then she's like, I have realized I don't know what I want to do. I've played it safe my entire life, and the story just kind of follows her navigating that process. She tries her hand at working at a zoo, she tries her hand at wedding planning, and then she's also working with her friend who is a journalist. So the whole story is her dipping her toes in, seeing what it is she wants to do. Which was something I could relate to, because I, growing up, never knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a midwife, I wanted to be an actress, I wanted to be a beauty therapist, I wanted to be a psychologist or a counsellor, I wanted to be a teacher. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, so could relate. I gave this one a 3. It was a easy, fun, comfortable read. It was a nice easy start to the challenge. Our next prompt was Diverse Dish Discovery. This is a book that has been translated into English, and the one I went for was The Full Moon Coffee Shop by Mai Mochizuki, translated by Jessie Kirkwood. I hope I've pronounced that right. This story was lovely. It's basically about a coffee shop that appears when there's a full moon, and the people that run this coffee shop are cats, and they're also really concerned with things like astrology, and it shows up for people who have lost their way in life. So a lot of magical realism. Is it realism? It's a coffee shop run by cats? I don't know. The idea is that the coffee shop helps them to discover their future, find their path, find their way through the advice and the drinks that they consume at the coffee shop. So for example, one of the drinks was the Lunar Chocolate Fondant, which is very cute, and then there's the pictures of what the drinks would look like. Again, I gave this one a 3. I was really excited about the concept. I think it did fall a little bit flat, but again, it was enjoyable. It was an easy read and very, very cozy and cute. Our next prompt was called Feast Your Eyes, which was a book with pictures, so manga or a graphic novel or a pictorial. And of course, I had to go with Heartstopper. I got this nice shiny hardback by Alice Oseman. I am obsessed with this series. Like, this is like one of my comfort shows. I love it so, so much. And I just sat and I took this to the beach and read it in one go. If you're unfamiliar with Heartstopper, or you're not sure what it's about, or you've heard of it and you're interested, you're intrigued, it essentially follows the story of Charlie and Nick, and they're graphic novels, so you will find that you will fly through these. And it's all about just their lives whilst they're at school, their friends, and it's just a celebration of love. And I actually got the full hardback collection for Christmas, so I will absolutely be continuing with that. It was just lovely. The back says, boy meets boy, boys become friends, boys fall in love. That sums it up better than I could have. Of course, an easy 5 stars for me. Please get on the Heartstopper novels if you love the series. If you haven't seen the series, if you want to watch the series, get this in your life because it is stunning. The next prompt that I did was A Bittersweet Goodbye, which I think was meant to be the last prompt, but I just kind of did it in the order that I wanted to. So this is a book that you'd been saving up, and the one that I chose for this was First Year by Christina Ross. This is about a girl called Maeve who has just started at drama school in Melbourne, And the way that the book is structured is it works in terms. So term 1, term 2, 3, and 4. And it's just about her experience at the drama school. And I'm a drama teacher, so I was so interested in the concept of this book. However, this book put me in such a reading slump, which is really sad. I was so excited for the concept, for gaining, you know, this perspective of drama school in Melbourne, and it just was not executed as well as I think it could have been. I found myself bored. I found it was talking about things that were not at all really interesting. A lot of the references I only knew because I have a drama degree and I have a drama background. Otherwise, I think some of it would get lost on you, which isn't necessarily a bad reflection of the book. But I just found myself, like, this took me a month to read. It is not that long. It is, how long is this book? 341 pages, and I just found that I just didn't want to pick it up and I wasn't interested in it. So unfortunately, this was a 2 stars for me. I managed to get through it. It wasn't a DNF. Unfortunately, fell a little bit flat, but that's okay. You can't win them all. Okay, the next prompt I went for was Pick Your Poison, which was a scary, dark, or thrilling story. And I am very pleased that this book actually got me out of the slump that I was in. This book that I went for was Love Letters to a Serial Killer by Tasha Coriel? I don't know how to say her name, I'm so sorry. This was excellent. I loved reading this. It's about a character called Hannah who is essentially writing letters to a man who is in prison for murdering women. And she's a bit lost. She doesn't really have a lot going for her. Her job is boring. Her relationship ended. Her friend is getting married, so doesn't have time for her anymore. So this is kind of something that we find that Hannah's really latching on to. It was had a lot of dark humor in it. It was very witty. And I just remember finding myself just being very interested in following this character because she had a lot of issues. She had a lot going on. But it made for a very engaging read. So much so that, as I said, it got me out of the slump that I was in. This one I gave 4 stars. I then continued along the thriller kind of trajectory. So the next prompt was Guilty Pleasure, which was a book from your favorite genre. And I had a good think about what my favorite genre is. I love Australian fiction. I love thrillers. I realized I haven't really ever kind of sat down and thought, what is my favorite genre? But I do often find myself being drawn to thrillers. I like fast-paced books. So of course, if I was going for a thriller, I had to give Freida McFadden a go, and I chose The Housemaid. This, I would agree, was as good as the hype. So this is about a girl, I believe her name was Millie, and she becomes a housemaid for the Winchesters. And Nina Winchester is being an absolute nightmare. She's making her life hell. She's making her sleep up in this awful tiny room up this terrifying flight of stairs. They've got this really pristine house that Nina kind of just trashes. And then she realizes that her bedroom door only locks from the outside. And I'm not going to say any more than that because it's quite a twisty book and there's lots of things that are a surprise. So I wouldn't want to spoil that. But this book, I flew through. I really enjoyed it. It was really good to be back into the swing of things. If you have been thinking, is Freida McFadden worth it? She's got so many books out. Everyone's talking about her at the moment. Absolutely start with The Housemaid for a little taste of her style. But this was a great read. Again, I gave this one 4 stars. The next prompt was short and sweet, so a book that you can sit and enjoy in one sitting. And for this one, I chose Max Porter's Shy. This one was 122 pages and is a mix of prose and poetry. You can see, even when you open it, that the way that it's laid out, so this page in particular, you have to read across the 2 pages and kind of flick back and forth. But also stylistically, when you read it, you'll notice that there's some really creative decisions that have been made in this book, which I think what also makes it so quick. So this is set in England in 1995, and our main character's name is Shy. And Shy is at a boarding house for delinquent boys, troubled boys. And the story takes place over the course of a few hours of the same night. And it's really just told from the perspective of the inside of his mind. A lot of it would be described as kind of internal monologue. It's raw, it's unique, it's chaotic, and stylistically, as I said, it's really experimental, which is what I think made this so remarkable and so memorable. I really enjoyed this one. It was, again, a quick read, but also so much was packed into these 122 pages. Max Porter has also written a book that is very popular called Grief is the Thing with Feathers. So I think after reading this, I'd be keen to give that a go as well. I gave this one 4 stars. The prompt that finished off the dessert section of the Dimmicks Reading Challenge was called Coffee and Cake, and said to pick up a classic. Now, of course, it was getting towards the end of the year. I had to find something a little bit Christmassy as well. So, of course, we had to go for a Christmas classic, which was A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And this was a lovely version with the gold and the little ribbon. Loved this. I know the story of A Christmas Carol quite well. I've seen so many different adaptations of the film. If you're unfamiliar, it essentially follows the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, who is visited by 4 ghosts one evening, I believe on Christmas Eve. Ebenezer Scrooge is not a nice man, he's not a generous man, and he is visited by the ghost of his old friend and business partner, Jacob Marley, and then he's visited by the ghosts of Christmas past, present and future. And the idea is to kind of shake him up a little bit and make him realize what kind of person he is, and that he essentially needs to change his ways to be a good person. Charles Dickens writes very descriptive novels, I find. He plays a lot with words, he uses a lot of words. Once you kind of get used to that, it's a great book. I gave this one 4 stars. The story, I think, is a 5-star story. The reason I gave it a 4 is because there were moments where I was finding the language, I had to really kind of focus to keep an eye on the language, to make sure I was following what it was talking about. Sometimes I'd reread something, which isn't necessarily a reflection on the book or the story. Maybe that's more a reflection on me. But a Christmas classic nonetheless. Now, just when I thought that was the end of the Dimmicks Reading Challenge, they were sneaky and they added in a little section called Christmas Leftovers. So there were 4 more books that I read to finish off the year. So we're gonna go through those. The first one was Wrapped in a Bow, and that is a book that you received as a gift. And that one for me was The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. At the start of last year, I read Mr. Wrong Number, which was my first Lynn Painter, and also my first romance that I'd read in a long time. Like, I'm talking since I was like a teenager, preteen kind of age. And I really did enjoy this. I think Lynn Painter is up there with a reliable romance writer for me. So this actually follows 2 of the characters that we're briefly introduced to in Mr. Wrong Number. We are following the lives of Jack and Hallie, and they essentially have a bet, a wager, on who is going to find the one first. And they go on all of these dates and then they debrief after the date. Then they decide to be each other's fake dates for a wedding that Hallie is going to. I believe it's her sister's wedding. And they have this undeniable chemistry, but they're both kind of a little bit scared to do anything about it. So it's following how they're navigating that relationship and what they want that relationship to be. It was really fun, a fantastic beach read, or a fantastic summer read. So this was lovely. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. The next book prompt was Food Coma, which was a free choice book. And for this one, again, I chose a book to read at the beach, and I went for The Book Swap by Tessa Bickers. The reviews for this were that it's not a romance, it's really depressing, like read with caution, etc, etc. Now, this book follows the story of Erin and James, and it flicks between their two perspectives, so it's a dual POV. They essentially are communicating with each other through annotations in books that they leave in like a little street library, but they don't know that they are writing to each other. So Erin and James were friends at school, then there was this big incident that happened, and then they never spoke to each other again, but then they find that they are writing to each other unknowingly through the pages and the margins of the books that they're annotating. There's a lot of discussion of grief in here. Both of them have experienced loss and grief. Also discussion of mental health with James's mother. Now, would I say this is a romance? Potentially not. It is following the development of their relationship, so it's got elements of love and romance in it. I think this is actually just a book about love in all forms, to be honest. A love for books, a love for family, a romantic love, a love for friendship, and a love for life is how I would describe this book. I really did find myself enjoying it. Yes, there are moments that are quite sad, but it didn't overshadow the whole book for me. I gave this one a 4 stars. I really liked the characters. I really liked their love for books and their love for reading. So I think that is what swayed it for me. 4 stars. The next prompt, I don't think I read it properly. I definitely didn't read it properly. So the prompt says, which looking back, this is poor. The prompt says festive cheer, and it says a festive themed story to bring joy to your holiday season. My brain just went festive. You have to just find a Christmas book. It doesn't matter what it's about. This one I would not say is about festive cheer, but it was festive. So just, you know, let's just bear that in mind. I chose for my festive book set at Christmas time, The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson. Peter Swanson is a crime writer, and of course I knew that when I was buying it. I went to the crime section because I wanted a Christmassy crime. And this was a novella, so it was short, sweet. Christmas was a busy period, so I needed something that I was gonna get through quite quickly. So this is about a girl called Ashley Smith, and she's an American girl who goes to university in London. And she is invited to her friend's country house for Christmas, but there's some odd things going on during her time there. We are also introduced to her friend's brother, who is Adam, who Ashley has a huge crush on and is interested in. The story is essentially following the strange goings on that occur in this house. It is split into 2 parts, so you can see halfway through it's like this. So it's essentially just 2 chapters within a short novella. This was 124 pages. It was good. I find it hard to rate novellas because I'm placing a rating on something that was so short, and I don't know why I find that hard to do. I gave this a 3.5. It was quick, it was pacey, it was interesting, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed his writing. This was a nice little taste of his writing style. Okay, this final book that I'm going to talk about, we're ending on a high. So this book prompt was the Dimmicks Book of the Year list. So Dimmicks release 9 books that have been shortlisted for the Book of the Year. And this book, let's just get straight into what the book was. The book that I chose was A Language of Limbs by Dylan Hardcastle. Everyone, we finished on a 5-star read. This book was everything. I loved this book. Okay, let's try and talk about this with some structure. Context. This book follows two main characters called Lim 1 and Lim 2. So it's set across kind of 2 or 3 decades, the 70s, the 80s, potentially the early 90s, in Australia during the first Mardi Gras, during the AIDS pandemic, and it's following LGBTQIA plus stories. I believe the words that I used to describe this book were beautiful, heartbreaking, poetic, and vital. First of all, Dylan Hardcastle takes words and just makes them magical. The poetry, the poetic prose of this book was phenomenal. It was the most unique writing style, and it was so beautiful. I actually made a TikTok and a YouTube short of some of my favorite moments from this book. It was one of those that I found myself wanting to talk about and wanting to tell people about, and that was having kind of physical and auditory reactions. And I think for me, that is how I know something's a 5-star. If it gives me a physical reaction and I can't stop thinking about it, and I want to research it and I want to tell people about it, that for me is a no-brainer. This is a 5-star read. I found that it was also teaching me about the LGBTQIA plus community during this time, and it was so important and so raw and so special. The two lives that we follow are two separate lives, but they almost intertwine throughout the story. So for example, they might be at the same event, but they don't meet each other or they don't see each other, but they just experience the same event through those different lenses. So Lim 1, it follows her experience in a shared house called Uranian House and her sapphic relationship throughout the story. Whereas Lim 2, she's trying to suppress the sapphic thoughts that she's having. She ends up marrying a man called Thomas, and she has dreams about this other woman, and she's trying to, I guess, suppress them. So two really interesting, unique perspectives on love, on sapphic relationships, on the LGBTQIA plus community. It was just excellent. I think this was vibrant. I think it was heartbreaking. I think it was important. I think it was extraordinary. I think it was just a really important read that I would recommend to anyone. So of course, A Language of Limbs, Dylan Hardcastle was a 5-star read for me. And that is it. That concludes our 2024 Dimmicks Reading Challenge. I will link the other 2 videos that I did on the entrees and the main course, which outlined what other books I read this year. I am, of course, going to be doing the 2025 reading challenge, so keep your eye out for a few wrap-ups there. And I'm really excited that this year I'm going to be doing a lot more work with filming and creating some more video content and some more book content for you to show you a little bit more about my reading experiences. And I cannot wait to hear from some of you, hear your recommendations, hear your thoughts on some of the books that I've been reading. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm so excited for you to see what 2025 is going to bring for us. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. You can also follow me on TikTok. I'll leave all the links below. If you've read any of the books that were in this wrap up today, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you thought, and I will see you so soon in the next one. Bye!